Look around today's world. People borrow for homes, cars, phones, food, even education. Governments borrow to pay salaries. Companies borrow to build factories. Nations borrow from nations. And from banks nobody elected. Debt is everywhere. Debt is normal. Debt is expected. But that raises a terrifying question. How did humanity, across every border and every culture, become addicted to debt? This is not just a story about banks. It is the story of how modern civilization, our cities, our homes, our governments, became built on money that does not exist. You are watching Be Explained, and this is how the world became addicted to debt. Debt didn't start with banks. It began thousands of years ago, before coins even existed. Ancient farmers borrowed grain from neighbours and promised to return more later. Debt was simple. If you had a bad harvest, you borrowed to survive. But soon, rulers discovered something powerful. People who owe you money obey you. Debt became control. Ancient kingdoms found that lending to the people was more effective than ruling them by force. Debt became a tool, and humanity never stopped using it. In medieval Europe, goldsmiths started storing gold for people. They gave paper receipts to prove ownership. Eventually, those receipts began to circulate like money. This created a strange situation. There was more paper money moving around than gold to back it. Banks realized they could loan out money that didn't exist, and charge interest for it. From this moment on, the world entered a new age. Money was no longer created by governments, but by loans. Debt became the engine of wealth. In the 1600s, the Dutch Republic and later Britain discovered something revolutionary. Countries could borrow money to fund expansion. Wars needed funding. Colonies needed ships. Empires needed power. So nations borrowed from bankers. When they won, banks made fortunes. When they lost, people paid taxes to cover the debt. The message was clear. Debt made nations powerful. Debt made nations dangerous. Debt made nations dependent. When America declared independence, it was already in debt. After World War II, the US became the center of world finance. The dollar became the world currency. Countries traded using dollars. To get dollars, many nations had to borrow dollars from American banks. The US built a new kind of empire, not through colonies or soldiers, but through credit lines and interest. Debt was now global. After World War II, banks discovered consumers. People wanted cars, furniture, televisions. Banks realized if people could borrow money, they would spend money. Credit cards were invented. Mortgage markets exploded. Student loans expanded. Debt no longer felt dangerous. Debt felt normal. By the 1970s, governments around the world were spending more money than they collected. Social programs expanded, military budgets expanded, politicians promised benefits without raising taxes. How did they do it? Debt. And debt worked wonders. No riots, no complaints, no sacrifice. People were happy because debt postponed consequences. In 1971, something crucial happened. President Richard Nixon disconnected the US dollar from gold. Before that moment, money had to be backed by gold. After 1971, money only had to be backed by belief. This allowed something incredible. Governments could create unlimited money by creating unlimited debt. From that moment forward, debt was no longer a tool, debt became the system. Banks discovered financial products, derivatives, swaps, mortgage bundles, credit default instruments, complicated names, simple idea. Turn debt into profit. Wall Street made trillions. Politicians celebrated. The global economy expanded faster than ever. Here's the catch. It expanded on borrowed money. Debt replaced real growth. In 2008, the world saw the consequences. Too much debt, too little real value. Housing collapsed. Banks failed. People lost homes. Governments had to choose, let banks die or borrow even more to save them. They chose debt. The world doubled down on the addiction. Today, global debt is over $300 trillion. Most money in existence is debt. Governments borrow to pay interest on older debt. Young people start life already owing money. Companies survive on loans. Banks profit from every signature. Debt is no longer a tool used occasionally. Debt is the foundation of the global economy. Remove debt, the system collapses. Which leads to the final truth. If the world stopped borrowing, businesses would shut down, governments would fall, unemployment would explode, credit markets would freeze, savings would vanish. Debt isn't just normal now. Debt is necessary. Humanity has built a civilization on money that doesn't exist, backed by promises that can't be kept, controlled by institutions nobody elected. The world isn't addicted to debt by accident. Debt is the fuel. Debt is the foundation. Debt is the system. So the real question isn't, how did the world become addicted to debt? The real question is, what happens the day the world can't borrow anymore?
This is Be Explained. If you want history without myths or noise, subscribe, because the past still shapes the present. And here it is explained.